Hello everybody and welcome to Cabaret Secrets. My name's Gary Williams and today we're going to talk about sound, and I'm joined by my new best friend, a brilliant sound engineer, Kay Richardson. Hi Kay, welcome to Cabaret Secrets.
Hello Gary.
Oh, you're sounding very posh now you're on a podcast. So, what was your background before you were working here on a ship?
I actually went to recording school for live sound and for recording, and then after that I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I started working in the theaters there, doing sound engineering and sound design.
How much of the stuff that you learned at school was relevant, actually, practically in the workplace?
All of it.
Really?
All of it.
That's unusual, eh?
Yeah, it is unusual, but all of it was very, very, very helpful, and especially when I came to ships, because my first ship was Adventure, and they had the Euphonics, which is a recording console, which...
You're going to have to translate, I don't know what you're talking about now. Just the sound box.
They had this soundboard on Adventure that is a recording console.
This is a Royal Caribbean ship.
Royal Caribbean ship.
Right.
And most ships have live consoles, like it's for live sound, not for recording.
Oh, okay.
But that ship had a recording console for recording as opposed to live sound. But because I had a recording background, I already knew how to work it. But if I didn't, then it would have been complicated.
So was most of the stuff that you learned was in a recording situation or in a live, or was it a real mixture of both?
It was a mix of both.
And does it make a big difference to you the way you approach sound, whether it's for recording in a studio or live on stage, or is it basically the same?
No, it's not the same. You approach it completely different.
Like how?
Like with the recording console versus the live console, everything you know about live sound, you have to get rid of it, because it does not apply to a recording console. It's complete opposite. So, like with that board, or like with recording, for instance, because you're just in a studio and you're recording, you can go back and edit anytime you want to. The way you EQ an instrument will be different. The way you balance everything is going to be completely different than if you're in a live theater, because in a live theater you don't want it to sound like it's in a studio recorded. You want it to just be live. So the way you EQ and balance everything is completely different.
And is the equipment that you were faced with on a ship generally much different to what you were working with on land? Did you learn much when you came onto ships? Is it sort of bigger, better, not so good, or how does it compare?
The equipment is a little different, especially on bigger ships, because at home I've never worked with LCS, which is what they have on the bigger ships.
What is that, a brand or a type?
It's a type of playback. So on this ship we have the 2424 to play back all the tracks for the production shows.
These, for those that don't know, these are, well, explain.
So for all of our production shows that we have, the Royal Caribbean singers, when they sing, they have tracks to cover what the orchestra doesn't play. And for that, we have it backed up onto...
Oh, so do you mean like music, so for example some congas or some strings or some things that aren't in the orchestra, they're recorded on this track, and the live orchestra plays along to the recorded instruments?
That's correct. So the biggest ships have what you call LCS, which is just a program, like Pro Tools, but instead of Pro Tools, it's called LCS. So that I learned on ships, because they didn't have it at home. They do now, but at first they didn't. So I learned that on ships, and all the digital boards I learned on ships. Because at home you have to already know it, or else you won't get hired.
So it's like analog boards before, and now on ships...
And now on ships, digital.
What's the main difference between analog and digital as far as you're concerned?
Because with analog, for every show, I have to go through and change all the knobs on my board. So I have to write down all my settings for each guest entertainer, so that the next time I can go through and change every single thing. On a digital board, you just press save, and I would type in your name, Gary Williams, and then the next time your show comes up, I just press recall.
So it sounds easy life.
It's much easier with a digital board.
And are these skills, the things which you've learned with the equipment on ships, are they things which you can use on land, or is it exclusive to ships? No,
it's because of everything that I've learned on ships. That's why I get hired more on land now. So the skills are very transferable.
How much of your time is spent working on land now, and how much is on ships, and do you like to get a balance?
Now I'm getting a balance. I just spent a year on land and 7 months when I leave here on ships. And then when I leave here, I'll be taking another year off, and then I'll come back and do another 7 months.
Nice, a nice balance. And do you think a lot of people in your position are pleasantly surprised with the standard of equipment that they have on ships, or what?
I know I am. Only because I did a tour this year on land, and it was very few venues that I went to that had this kind of equipment that they have on ships. So, no, I'm shocked at what they have on ships.
Because I think people still have, or some people still have this idea that ships is maybe a little bit old-fashioned. They've got this idea that they're stuck in a time warp of the 1970s or something, right? But I've heard, you tell me if this is true, but I've heard that a lot of ships are so over-specified as far as any kind of technical equipment is concerned, because the ship's going to stay in service a long time, and they want the equipment to really be absolute state-of-the-art so that it's going to still be pretty relevant 10 years down the road.
That's correct, because they don't want to spend a lot of money on something that's going to not last for more than 2 years or be outdated and you can't use it anymore. So, no, they spend a lot of money to make sure it's going to last for a long time.
It's nice, all right. It's good for everybody.
Nice.
So what are the main challenges for you when working with a singer on a ship?
Now, my biggest challenge is when I get a guest entertainer who doesn't know anything about what they want or need, whether it be, for instance, we'll have them come up. For me, it's important if I know the night before what you need as far as your setup, if it's a complicated setup or if you need a lot of things. That way when rehearsal comes, everything will be set and ready to go for you, and the band, when they get here, they're not waiting on me to finish setting you up.
But when you say like a complicated setup, what are you talking about singers, and do singers sometimes want complicated setups? Because mine's easy. Okay, it seems easy to me, but what else so I'll explain what I have, and I guess is mine standard or not?
Now, no. It used to be standard, but now every guest entertainer almost comes with they have their own backing tracks and also click for the band.
So for my setup, explain my setup, which is a simple setup.
So your setup is just, you have the live orchestra, you have your monitors, and then you have your background vocals.
Mm-hmm. So that is the monitors are the foldback, sometimes called foldback speakers. There's two of those at the front of the stage. The band have their own foldback, their own monitors, that's their business. And then for this show, I've got two backing vocalists, so there's two more microphones for those. And that's it.
That's easy.
I used to work with click tracks for some time. I tried them because it's nice to fill out the sound of the orchestra by having the strings, like we say, or some different instruments. Maybe sometimes I haven't got guitar in the band, so I'd have guitar on the track. But I stopped doing it because, for those that don't know, there's two channels, a left and a right, and on one channel, the instruments, which aren't in the orchestra, the recorded instruments, are coming out into the house, right?
Right.
And then on the other channel is a click, click, click. It's called a click track because what the musicians are listening to in their ear is someone counting 1, 2, 3, 4, which count starts the musicians playing, and then it's click, 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 click. The whole time throughout the tune, in their ears, the musicians have got this like a cowbell being hit, right, to keep them in time. Because, of course, they have to stay in exact time with the track, because if they started playing slightly off with the recorded instruments, it would all go horribly wrong. And I know for the style of music that I like to sing, which is sort of jazz-based, I suppose, most of it, that it's very restrictive to the sort of creativity of the musicians. It's sort of horrible. They just want to kind of get into the groove,
right.
And they can't get into a natural groove, because there's this cowbell hammering in their ear the whole time, and it's horrible, and it's kind of destructive to their creativity. Even though it makes for a less full sound, I'd rather have a more real sound and kind of try and have a bit more soul and feeling in there somewhere. But it is popular these days for people to use click tracks, right?
Yes.
And that's part of the setup.
That is part of the setup. So, and again, like, they'll do click track. For me, I like to just test everything to make sure it works the night before, or either a few minutes before rehearsal. And some people also bring, like, now that we're in Brazil, everyone wants to bring their own instruments, and which is fine, but...
Oh, the guest entertainers will bring their own guitar, or their own tambourine, or something.
Or they want in-ears as well, as opposed to using actual monitors.
So you can provide an in-ear monitor, like a little thing that plugs in their ear.
Correct. So all of this stuff is very helpful, just because I may or may not have what they're looking for, and I might have to improvise. But if you show up to rehearsal and you're just like, here you go, then...
If you show up 5 minutes before the rehearsal's going to start and you say, oh, well, by the way, I need this, this, and this...
Yeah, it's going to take a while to set it up. Because if I don't have it, then I have to go looking around in my different lockers to see what I have to make it work.
And that's going to... Then the band's got away,
Exactly.
The production team's got away. I mean, there's a lot of people, right? You could have like 15 people then waiting around for you making you feel bad and under pressure while everyone's wondering what's the sound person doing, but nobody told you, right?
Exactly.
So it helps to know at least like the day before. So it would help if when a singer comes on, maybe if they have typed up like a little, would you call it like a technical rider?
It is like a technical rider.
And it can be a simple thing, right? Because it doesn't have to be written in all sorts of fancy jargon, I guess, right? It can just say, hey, this is me, and this is kind of, I use click track during the show, and I've got my own tambourine which needs amplifying, I've got this, I've got that.
Right, whether or not they're going to use their own band, and what...
Their own what?
Their own band, because sometimes they don't always use our orchestra, they'll bring their own, like, guitar player, or bass player, or drummer. So all of those things are very, very, very helpful.
And if they don't tell you, you're not going to know until they show up on the day, right?
No, that did happen last contract. Someone had an old technical writer, and we kept asking, okay, are you...
It was an old technical...
It was an old one that they used last time they were here. So we're like, is it the same? They were like, yes, it's the same. So it said that they were going to be using all in-ears. So it was like 4 of them, and then 3 of our orchestra members. Everyone was to get in-ears. So I set everything up so everyone had their own in-ears and individual mix. I had everything ready to go for rehearsal. And then they show up at rehearsal and they're like, we didn't bring them. So now we are all going to use monitor wedges. Well, I didn't have enough monitor wedges to supply them on that ship. So now I have to go to the different lounges, find different, like, extra monitor wedges and get everything set up. So, of course, and on that ship, you have to repatch everything in the amp room for the monitors. So obviously that took a little more time.
And these repatching things in the amp room are things that we singers don't really think about.
Exactly.
Right? That's your department.
Exactly. So it required a lot more work than what they thought it was going to be as simple as get rid of the patching for the in-ears and just plug in the monitors. It's not that simple.
About when the singer starts doing the rehearsal, I mean, most singers, I suppose, have got some idea of how they like to sound. What's the best way for them to communicate that to you? When? Is before they actually start singing, during the first tune, after a few tunes, at the end? What's the best way?
For me, as long as you do it during rehearsal, it's fine.
Oh, do a what?
As long as they tell me during rehearsal, it's fine because I can make the adjustment. If they told me after rehearsal was over, it's hard because I can make an adjustment, but it might not be the adjustment they like. And there's no way for me to tell until after the show has started, and then it's too late. So it's always better. I don't care. Any time during a rehearsal is fine.
I still find it a bit difficult from time to time when I'm talking to a sound person to sort of articulate what I want. It's the same when I'm talking to lights, because I don't speak your language. I don't know the technical terms. I don't know enough about sound. I can't tell you how to I can't say, I think it needs a bit more mid, or it needs this frequency needs taking out, or you need this kind of reverb, or blah, blah, blah. I just hear that it's not right. So I generally might say, well, what I do say, and I'm sure what I said to you, is I like to try and sound nice and warm and rich, and I like it to make me sound expensive. And I don't like to have lots of effects, lots of reverb in the house. I don't like to hear it swimming around the voice. And I like it to sort of sound close. I want it to sound to everybody in the house very present, I say. Now, I'm assuming that you're listening to that thinking, what is he talking about? But you sort of figure out kind of the gist, from my layman's language, what you need to do.
Yes. When I first started doing sound, no, I didn't get it. But now everyone speaks like this.
Right.
So now I get the general idea of what you're talking about, so it's easy. As long as for me, I can tell. If I always see a singer making a weird face, I can tell they don't like it anyway.
You just go on facial expressions.
So they'll just, okay, something's missing, or they don't really know how to, but that's fine. I can still work with that. So none of those things bother me. I can always work with that, and at some point we'll reach where the singer is happy and I'm happy. So
we don't need to worry about not being very articulate in the language of sound. We can just sort of say, even if we just say, I don't know what it is, but just something, it just sounds a bit weird to me.
Right.
You just fiddle around until the singer's happy, right?
Exactly.
And that's normal.
That's normal.
The sound person is not going to think, this person's unprofessional, they don't know. That's just normal.
That is normal.
And do you like it when the singer comes out into the house and actually listens and gives you comments, or do you think, oh, you just leave me to do my job?
I'm okay.
You can be honest.
Yeah, it depends. For the most part, I'm okay if they come out and listen to it, because at the end of it's their show. So I'm okay with that. The time I have a problem is when people start saying, oh, the piano needs to come up higher, because, or like the overall level needs to just be extremely too loud. Because for me, I'm like, I have to look out for my ears, one, but if it's too loud for me, I know it's going to be too loud for the audience. Mm-hmm. So I can't, like, I'll give you as loud as you want it on the stage, but when it comes to the house, I have to think about the audience and making sure that it's not too loud and we don't get guest complaints. So sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. It just depends. I did have a guest entertainer maybe 2 weeks ago. No, because especially like when you know a song and you're like getting into the groove of it and you're like, this is how it should sound, and no, I don't like it when you start saying, okay, the piano more, blah blah blah. So it just depends. Because when 2 years ago I had a Motown group on, and this is before I actually really knew how to mix Motown, and they were like, okay, give me more. That made me happy, because when I did it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love the way it sounds better.
Right.
So for me, if it sounds better if you say, okay, give me more of this, and I do it, and I'm like, oh, it actually sounds better, then I'm happy with it. But if you say, okay, give me more of this, and it sounds horrible, then no. I'm like,
so for stuff in the house, it's cool for us to say, oh, can we try it with a bit more piano, or
right.
I'm not hearing the guitar, or for this number I like to hear the horns louder. Can we try that? But kind of suggest and kind of leave the final decision kind of to you, because this is your domain in the house, and it's important for us to trust that you know what you're doing, particularly because the sound, I think, is going to be different when the audience is in, right?
It is, because the audience will absorb most of it, so it's going to be it's going to have to be louder anyway, just because they're going to take up most of the sound, so it's not going to be the exact same level that it was during rehearsal. And then sometimes it will affect the EQ as well. So, do
you allow for that during the rehearsal? Do you have it louder anyway during the rehearsal, and you have the EQ set as you think it should be for when it's in the house? Or do you do the rehearsal one way and then just tweak a few things when the audience comes in?
If it's a new entertainer that I haven't worked with before, I'll have it the way I'm going to have it for the show. But if I work with the person over and over again, then I'm like, no, I just have it soft.
Because you don't want a headache.
No, because I'm like, I already mixed this show a gazillion times, so I already know how it's going to be, because I have it saved on my board the way it's going to be. And for rehearsal, I'll just bring it down, because I'm just going to press recall again.
And do you need to, with these digital desks, do you need to change much during the show, or once it's set, you just sit back and do a crossword?
No, I still...
Or in your case, play on your iPad. I've seen you.
No, for the actual show, I will have to mix it a little bit, just because of the dynamics. Like, for instance, in your show with the piano, sometimes the piano you can hear it loud and clear, and then other times you can't. So I will have to mix the piano more so than the horn section, because the horn section I can pretty much set, except for the trumpet when he changes. I don't know
the mute.
Yes,
yeah.
When he changes that, then I still have to...
Because the mute makes it more quiet, and so you need to turn it up a bit.
Turn it up a bit. So for the most part, I still have to mix.
And I wasn't trained as a singer, but people always used to talk to me about microphone technique, and I didn't really know what they were talking about. So I just kind of, I don't know, I figured it out as I went along. And I used to often say to the sound engineer, hey, tell me if I need to have the mic further away or from my mouth or closer, or I wasn't quite sure whether I should be moving it as if I belt a big note out at the end of a song, if I should move the mic away to allow for that, or whether that was just being done by you guys. I got into my head that I didn't like the idea of the sound engineer doing all that for me. It seems to me that as a singer, I should be controlling that at my end as much as possible, but really, I don't know, is this something that singers need to know more about, or they're doing wrong generally, or they do right? What?
For me, most singers don't like compressors.
What's that?
A compressor is for people who don't have good microphone techniques. We'll put a compressor on your microphone so that when you belt those loud notes, it'll automatically take you down and then bring you back up.
I see.
But most singers don't like it, so I try not to put a compressor on a singer's microphone, but I will have to if they don't know how to pull the microphone away. So I had one singer, the same one 2 weeks ago, who doesn't like a compressor as well.
We better not mention this name.
No, I'm not going to mention the name. But at the same time, it's like you have to be able to, if you're going to belt a loud note, you have to pull the microphone away. Because if you're not going to pull it away, then I'm going to constantly be on my board trying to like have my hand on the fader to pull it down and pull it up.
So you're going to be pulling it down instead of them pulling the mic away. Something's got to give, or you've got to compress
or I'm just
it.
going to put a compressor on it so I don't have to worry about it.
Why don't singers like compressors?
Because they think it takes away from the sound of their voice.
Does it?
In my opinion, no. So during the rehearsal, I will have it off. If during a rehearsal, I hear something like, oh, okay, they're going to abuse, that's what I call it, abuse the microphone, then I'll put the compressor on right away. But I still won't put it on, like, I'll barely put it on. I won't do it too much.
So it's important during a rehearsal that the singer sings out full. Do they normally do that, or do you find people kind of just, walk through it?
No, some people don't. They come in and they just barely sing, and then during the show you get shocked because all of a sudden they're just extremely loud, and then that's when I'll throw in a compressor as well.
So I guess it's if that's the way they like to do it, they perhaps should at least do one thing or half a song or something for you full out.
So I can get a feel and be able to set my levels and everything.
And this microphone technique, is it simply just, if you're hitting a big note, just move the microphone away?
That's it.
And is it just a little bit? Because I've got this idea of, really cheesy singers, from years ago, and they pull the mic, they hit a big note and they pull the mic down almost to their hands like near their knees, do you know what I mean? And every time they hit a big note, until you can't hear them at all, and it's just awful. Is it just a tiny bit or what?
No, it's just a little bit. You don't have to pull it away that much, but you do. It depends on how loud you hit the note. So obviously, if it's not that loud, then just a little bit. But if it's going to be extremely loud, then you can pull it away even further, but not too far, not down to your knees.
Is it true that if you sing close to the mic, that it makes a more rich, more sort of bassy sound?
It's definitely more bassy.
And so sometimes when I'm singing ballads, because I heard that sometimes. So if I'm singing a very soft ballad, I'll sing very close to the mic. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, that's fine. It does, because for me, when you sing that close, because you're not belting anything out, it's fine. Because it's a nice, just normal, natural sound. So it's not affecting me in any kind of way.
Cool. Okay.
If you grab the microphone, like over the grill, the top of the microphone, if you grab that while you were singing, then it will affect me.
People do that?
Yes. And then because it makes more of a high-end sound than bassy, so then it just...
Do you mean, so the round top of the microphone, you mean when they hold it, they're kind of holding it a bit too high?
Hold it too tight.
Too tight.
Yeah.
So that their fingers are over presumably the underneath, the bottom half of the grill. And that causes a problem.
So all I'm getting is like highs out of the microphone.
Because they're assuming that the important bit is the top half of the grill, but actually it's all of it.
Correct.
Cool. What about singers using their own microphones? Does that ever happen?
Yes, and I'm completely fine with that as well. That does not affect me at all.
Do you think it's advisable? I've heard some people say, a sign of a good professional singer is they use their own microphone,
I think if you're picky about the type of microphone you want to use, and you're not sure if where you're going is going to have it, then bring it. Definitely.
I have heard that before, and I used to have my own microphone that I'd carry around, and then I just couldn't be bothered, and I didn't see a lot of difference. And I remember once doing a TV broadcast, and the way that they mixed the voice, I don't know, it sounded really nice. Whatever they'd done with it sounded really nice. And I was using it was literally a battered SM58, a very standard vocal mic. It had been dropped, it had this big dent in the top of it. It had seen better days. It was, a standard, bog standard. And I thought to myself, the microphone, I've used those microphones before and it sounded completely different. And I thought, for me, I'm sure if I used a microphone 10 times the price, it would have had a even better sound. But it seemed to me that it was, the microphone was just a small part of it, that what was being done by the engineer at the desk seemed to make the biggest difference. Is that a mistake?
It's not necessarily, it depends. For me, for instance, we have two different wireless handhelds. Here we have the SM58, and then we have the SM57. I like the SM57 better for vocals but is it? No, it's not 57. It's 87.
Oh, the 87.
So I like the 87 better for vocals, but some people like the 58 better. So for me, I don't know, because whenever I swapped out the 87 with the 58 before, and I used the same EQ on it. No, it's not the same.
So it does make a difference?
It does make a difference.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. So anything else that you would say to singers that are coming on a ship for the first time? They want to be prepared, they want to look professional, and they want their show obviously to sound great. Any other tips that you might give them?
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. My biggest pet peeve is the microphone technique and the whole no technical rider.
Being prepared.
Yep.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for listening to this Cabaret Secrets podcast. If you've got any comments or questions, please visit cabaretsecrets.com, where you'll also find details of the Cabaret Secrets book, an indispensable guide on how to create your own show, travel the world, and get paid to do what you love.